Paimon, the Navi of Genshin Impact.
Listen!
She goes by many names: Little Pixie, Floating Elf Companion, Emergency...
Hey! Paimon knows exactly what you're going to say. That joke stopped being funny a long time ago.
But... Despite being our travel buddy and oftentimes annoying mouthpiece, Paimon is one of the most mysterious characters in the game. The girl is hella sus. We know she's gotta be important. I mean, she's the game's mascot and everything, but how important? Is she good? Is she evil? Or is she neither? This video will be my first entry within the Sun and Moon series that I intend to release over the coming weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot of big questions like, what is going on with the sky? What the heck is the abyss? What the heck are the travelers? And why hasn't anyone thrown Albert in horny jail yet? Bear in mind, as we maneuver through this journey together, these videos will be nothing more than my own theories and speculations. No reason to raise any pitchforks or nothing. My aim is not to be right, but bitch, it sure as hell feel good if I was. Also, I am considering Aether as the canonical protagonist and Lumine as the canonical Abyss Princess for all videos I will ever release. Sorry, Lumine mains, it just seems like MiHoyo constantly chooses Aether as the protagonist in their promotional materials. Now, who is Paimon? Let's talk. So, what do we know about her? Let's go down the list. Aether fished Paimon out of the sea 2 months before the start of the game. Based off the Traveler and Paimon's voice lines, it's likely that Paimon taught Aether the language of Teyvat during this time too. Paimon seems to know a lot about Teyvat and its history, which is kind of odd because no one seems to know anything about who or what she is. And the gods, who should know the most, are pretty quiet about her. Like, no one comments on her on a deeper level, save for a few exceptions, and they all happen to be human for the most part. Hell, we don't even know the full extent of what Aether knows about her. After all, he is somewhat unreliable as he chooses to withhold information himself. Either way, we know Paimon is obviously not human. She can float, disappear at will to God knows where, and possibly has more than one stomach. Also, she shoots out constellations every time she moves, probably from her second stomach. Definitely not something humans can do. Maybe some of y'all do that. I don't know what kind of shit y'all get up to, you nasties. Well, a lot of people seem to think that she's a god of some sort, and that is highly likely. She basically admitted to it in the About Yashiori Islands voice lines.
Are you a god?
Paimon sure is. As your bodyguard, Paimon is the god of protection.
She's being real cheeky about it, but I think we should take this seriously. I mean, she does not leave the Traveler's side at all and barely lets him out of her sight, except when the two are around Archons. Have you noticed that? She briefly left at the end of Venti's story quest and also did not enter the plane of Euthymia with Aether the first couple times he went in. I mean, it's possible she was secretly still around in both of those scenarios, but I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, many people have pointed out that her design looks very similar to structures that we relate with Celestia. Her crown is also very similar to the ring that forms around the statues of the Seven when you upgrade them to level 10. There's also the origin of her name to consider. Paimon is a king of hell, mentioned in the Lesser Key of Solomon. The only characters in the game thus far who have had names based off demons in the Lesser Key of Solomon are the gods, and they share a lot of qualities with their demon counterparts. Paimon is no exception. The demon Paimon is described as a man with a feminine face, adorned with a crown and riding a dromedary camel. He's knowledgeable about the earth, its waters and winds, and all affairs of the world, answers all questions truthfully, can reveal hidden treasures, has the ability to bestow dignities and lordships, clears up doubts, can remain underwater indefinitely, and has a knowledge of past and future events. events. Oh, and he's also extremely loyal to Lucifer. I know that sounds bad, but that's actually a really good thing. Many of you may know the Christian interpretation of Lucifer. However, the figure himself is not unique to Christianity. The word Lucifer means light bringer in Latin, and in Greco-Roman folklore, he was a personification of the morning star, otherwise known as the planet Venus. He even has an evening aspect that the Roman poet Catullus called noctifer, which means night bringer. Remember Catullus because we'll be talking about him again later in the series. Anyway, in Roman poetry, Lucifer was romanticized as herald of the dawn, a son of it in some cases, so lots of light and star references. Even if we look at Lucifer in his Christian context, he is a fallen angel who was cast out of heaven for leading a rebellion against God. That sound familiar?
No.
You're right! He sounds like the travelers, who are constantly symbolized with light, the stars, and were even cast out of a heaven of sorts by a god at the very beginning of the game. Ether and Lumine's color palettes even reflect morning and night. So if they are Genshin's interpretation of Lucifer, then Paimon being loyal to Lucifer is a really good sign, and is also more proof of her actual identity, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. I'm not going to delve too deep into the Lucifer conversation right now, despite there being so much more to say. We'll be talking about the Travelers in depth later in the series, so for now, just keep in mind that they, and a few others, are Genshin's interpretation of Lucifer, Tevat's glittering morning stars. Going back to that voice line, Paimon refers to herself as a god of protection, and again, although it sounds like she's being sarcastic, she is definitely the Traveler's protector. I mean, sure, it looks like all she does is eat Ether's food, spend his mora, and talk his ear off, but I promise you she's doing way more than you might think. It's been implied by characters like Albedo that Paimon is the one who channels the elements into the Traveler after he touches the statues of the Seven. She's like the Rava to his Wan. In Avatar: The Legend of Korra, Wan, the first avatar, can only house one element within his body, so Rava holds the others within herself, passing through his body to confer the power of the other elements to him. Paimon may work similarly, constantly channeling energy through ether so he can manipulate multiple elements himself, and she is the one teaching him how to use his powers for combat, along with them observing the natural environment as inspiration and such. Paimon's like a signal, and ether is the receiver, or in more specific terms, Paimon's like Ether's vision. In fact, Ether and Paimon pretty much confirm this in their voice lines about the Vision Hunt decree.
If you are caught by the Tenryou Commission, you also can't surrender your vision in exchange for your life.
I can tell them that you are my vision.
Another reason to have Paimon around. Wait, what?
If this is true, then Paimon presumably can manipulate all forms of elemental energy. And now that I think about it, that might be why she loves to eat slime so damn much. You know, the big balls of condensed elemental energy? Okay, so she can presumably manipulate all forms of elemental energy. Keep in mind too that she's channeling the elements from Statues of the Seven without the Archon's knowledge. So she's gotta be a god of some sort, and a powerful one at that. But which one? The answer is actually rather simple, even obvious. Overall, I think she is at least 3 different things, all of which intersect with each other. The first being a Seelie. The Seelie are solemn, spirit-like creatures scattered throughout Tevat. They once covered every inch of the world and the Dark Sea too, until a calamity befell them and they lost their glorious humanoid forms, forgetting their memories and dwindling away into the diminutive forms we see them take today. Many of the ruins that we see scattered about the land might have belonged to them, especially any ruin with buildings that you see a Triquetra on. More on that in a moment. Since their fall, they've evolved, like in the case of Dragonspine's Pyro-aspected Seelie and the Electro Seelie of Inazuma, and They probably have more forms in other places too. Nowadays though, they just wander aimlessly, waiting for an adventurer who strikes their fancy to guide them back to their Seelie courts, after which they will reveal treasures. Also, they cute as fuck. Like, look at the little baby and the little noises they make. Oh. Their appearance is based off sea angels, also will-o'-the-wisps, creatures that have been attributed to the work of ghosts, fairies, or elemental spirits. Keep this in mind. Many have called out that Paimon is very Seelie-like. She's got a scarf, much like other Seelie, and it and she move in a similar way to the Seelie. Paimon is also obsessed with treasure and helps Ether solve puzzles to find it, much like Seelie do. She's also constantly referred to as a fairy-like creature. In Scottish folklore, which is where the Seelie are based from, the Seelie court is comprised of the Fae. Aside from that, much like how people don't know what Paimon is, most people in Teyvat don't seem to know what the Seelie actually are or their story, and because their voices were taken from them, they can't tell anyone. It's actually really sad. There's so much more to say about the Seelie, and I'm gonna dissect them more in the next video, so for now, just keep in mind, they are incredibly important to the deeper story of Genshin Impact. Now, I personally think this theory on Paimon is true, but we can take it one step further. She is so much more than just a Seelie. I think she is one of the 3 gods that ruled over them: Aria, Sonnet, and Canon. Thanks to Moonlit Bamboo Forest, we know that long ago in Teyvat's history, there were 3 bright moons in the sky who were sisters that ruled the celestial heights. And thanks to Heart's Desire, we know their names were Aria, Sonnet, and Canon. They would change places in the sky 3 times a month, riding around on a silver carriage. If the sisters didn't do a switcheroo, a calamity would happen the same day. Guess what happened? For an unknown reason, the sisters came to blows with each other, which led to their eternal parting. 2 moons crumbled away, and only one remains in the sky as a pale corpse, ever shedding its cold light. That's what we're told anyway, but there are some massive red flags here. Really big ones, like damn. Why did 2 moons crumble away and one was left completely fine? How can we be absolutely sure 2 of them aren't somewhere hanging around? Well, Records of Zhuyun Volume 4 tells a slightly different story to the Moonlit Bamboo Forest. According to it, after disaster struck, the graceful and heartbroken Seelie and the sisters grew more withdrawn each passing day, to the point where their wondrous forms withered away, leaving fragments of their former selves scattered in the mountains and ruins, where they turned into tiny little life forms. This implies the sisters didn't die at all, at least not all of them, but became fragmented instead. That might be why the word crumble is specifically used to describe the fate of 2 of the sisters. They broke down into their finer parts until they were mere shells of themselves. What if Paimon is, in fact, one of these fragments? It almost fits too perfectly. I mean, look at Paimon's design. She's got silver hair, the color of the moon and moonlight, blue eyes with stars in them like a night sky. Her scarf is also like the night sky, and again, she shoots out constellations. Paimon even looks like the person depicted on the blessing of the Welkin moon. Welkin meaning vault of the sky or firmament, i.e. heaven. Speaking of the shop, notice how we purchase items from Paimon by using Masterless Star Glitter and Stardust. You can even purchase Acquaint and Intertwined Fates to wish for characters with these 2 currencies. In the Lesser Key of Solomon, Paimon can make all kinds of things and all sorts of people and armor appear at the behest of her caster. It almost implies that Paimon has something to do with the stars and their maintenance, like the Moon Sisters may have done. Ashikai explains this idea a lot better in her Paimon video, so I urge you to check that out if you want to hear more. It's definitely worth the watch if you haven't seen it already, though I imagine a lot of you probably have. Either way, the link will be in the description box below. Please go check it out, as well as the rest of her amazing content. Also, she got a voice like butter. It's beautiful. Moving on, the biggest indicator towards Paimon's relation to the Moon Sisters is the Triquetra on her clothes. The Triquetra is an ancient symbol that has been found in several cultures across the world. In archaeology, the term is used to define any figure that consists of 3 arcs, including a triskelion, a symbol that has also appeared in the game. In neo-paganism, the Triquetra can symbolize the triple goddesses, often referred to as the Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone. Like the Holy Trinity in Christianity or the Fates in Greek mythology, they are often depicted as 3 aspects of the same being. They can represent the division between the heavens, earth, and the underworld, a stage in a woman's life cycle, and also a different phase of, you guessed it, the moon. In fact, in modern day, the moon is the ultimate symbol for the triple goddesses. Which phases they represent has been different over time, but in modern day, the maiden represents a waxing moon, the mother a full moon, and the crone a waning moon. If we take the origins of the Triquetra in mind and apply them to Genshin Impact, then it's likely the Triquetra represents the Moon Sisters. It would make a lot of sense. This is everywhere in the game. It's on the door to every domain, inside of every domain. It's on a lot of ancient architecture and items, and Morax thought it was important enough to put on Mora. On that note, Liyue's name means Jade Moon, just a testament to how important the moon is in Genshin. The fact that it features on Paimon's clothing is telling, and the fact that it's in a reversed position is also significant. Maybe this was simply a design choice, that this orientation ended up looking better. Now that's bullshit. Get that out your damn head. MiHoyo's world building team pays way too much attention to detail for that basic ass shit. I think this reverse Triquetra is further proof of Paimon's dissension from her original godly form, that she is a mere echo of what she once was, much like a certain someone. More on her later. We'll be discussing Aria, Sonnet, and Canon a lot more throughout the series, so for now I will just leave you with this quote to mull over from the moonlit bamboo forest. These 3 luminous moons shared but one love, the stars of daybreak. Only at the fleeting moments when day and night converged could one of the 3 sisters pass the fading stars and gaze upon the chambers of the morning stars. The chambers of the morning stars, huh? Okay, so there's some strong evidence for Paimon being a Seelie, and more importantly, a moon sister. I said I thought she was 3 beings though, so what's the 3rd? I think you guys know. Come on, say it with me.
No.
Paimon is the god of time. According to the sacrificial weapons, in the distant past, the clans Gunhildr, Lawrence, and Eamon Lauker worshipped the masters of Animo and Time together, who were intimately related. The clans would put on elaborate plays on the cliffs overlooking the eastern sea of Mondstadt, most likely referring to Starsnatch Cliff and the Thousand Winds Temple. Although the god of time was worshipped by these 3 clans, they ironically were eventually forgotten. So far, we don't have any indication that any of the 3 clans remember them. We haven't even met a member of the Eamon Lauker clan yet, if they still exist. I'm hoping Varka will be a member, but we'll see. None of the texts concerning Mondstadt's history even mention the god of time or their identity in any meaningful capacity. The only other information we get about the god of time concerns the world quest Time and Wind, which involves the Thousand Winds Temple and the Nameless Island to the east of it. And frankly, that quest doesn't really tell us much about the god of time either. But it is the first quest in a likely chain, so makes sense. Despite the severe lack of information, the idea that Paimon is the god of time has been a popular theory for a while for that reason. No one remembers the god of time, no one remembers who Paimon is, so she fits the description there. Most people think she's this god because every time you open the menu screen, Paimon seems to stop time. Interestingly though, this only applies to living bodies like the Traveler, NPCs, and animals. It also applies to celestial bodies like the sun and moon. It does not, however, apply to the wind and what the wind blows through, and also does not interrupt the flow of water. Wind and time are intricately related, right? Or so we're told. And the moon is responsible for tidal forces on Earth's large bodies of water, not to mention the demon Paimon in the Lesser Key of Solomon has knowledge over the Earth's waters and winds? A simple design choice or another clue. There may be something there, but we need more. Another reason people think she's the god of time is thanks to where we first met Paimon. Ether fishes her out of the sea that Star Snatch Cliff overlooks, and is not far from the Nameless Island. Coincidence? I think not. Speaking of one of the many things in Genshin that people play for the rewards and then never play again, remember the fishing event Lunar Realm?
No.
The whole point of the quest was finding the Lunar Leviathan, right? And it turned out to be a school of moonfin. Have you read the description of this fish? Who am I kidding? Y'all don't read Genshin text. Listen closely. Moonfin. A rare butterfly fish that emits light amidst the pitch-dark ocean. They love to swim in schools, and when gathered together, they form the image of a moon that has fallen into the sea. A moon that has fallen into the sea. Couple that with Paimon's love of fish and the fact that the Lesser Key of Solomon states that Paimon has control over fish, I couldn't help but think of her. If you really think about it, a moon god having the power to manipulate time, or more accurately, space-time, makes a lot of sense. Moons can be incredibly important for a planet's day and night cycle thanks to a process called tidal breaking. Take Earth's moon, for example. The moon tugs at the Earth with its gravitational force, which slows the Earth's rotation about its own axis, and the Earth's rotation affects how long a day on Earth is. Millions of years ago, when the moon was a lot closer to Earth and the Earth's rotation was a lot faster, days were as short as 5.5 hours. But by the time of the dinosaurs, tidal breaking slowed the Earth's rotation such that days were 22.5 hours. It may not seem like it, but I think tidal breaking is incredibly important to some of the weird things going on with Teyvat, so we'll be expanding on that a little later. All you need to wrap your pretty little heads around for now is that moons affect day and night cycles on their parent planets, among other things concerning time. We good?
No.
We're good. And there's even more moon references when it comes to the god of time. Remember, during the Time and Wind quest, you have to fight an Eye of the Storm twice, near the Sundials, or perhaps more accurately, Moondials? But in order to get it to spawn, you have to disperse 3 wind clusters and defeat some monsters. You can only do this between the hours of 2 and 5 a.m. 2 and 5. 3 hours, 3 wind clusters, 3 moon sisters, Triquetra, and these 2 locations are in Mondstadt. Mondstadt meaning Moon City. Need I say more? Maybe all of this is just a happy coincidence. Like, surely there isn't more evidence to Paimon being the god of time, right? Wrong! Take a look at Paimon's crown. It's got 2 unconnected parts to it with triangular-shaped notches on each side and 2 arrows between them, one arrow pointing up and the other down. Doesn't it kind of resemble a clock? I tried looking at as many angles of Paimon that I could, both in-game and in her official art, and I counted about 6 notches on each side of the crown, totaling up to 12, which is how many hours are represented on a standard clock. And the arrows, well, those are the hands. The arrow pointing up is the short hand, and the arrow pointing down is the big hand. In fact, take a look at the moon dials. See the golden parts? Combine both of them and run the arrows on the dials through them, and you may get something that kinda looks like Paimon's crown. Also kind of is reminiscent of the king chess piece. But I'll let Island XD explain that one if you haven't already seen his video about the 8th element. It is an excellent video along with the rest of his content. The man just knows what he's talking about. The link for that video will be in the description box below. Now couple all that information with the fact that the demon Paimon in the Lesser Key of Solomon knows the past and future, and we've got our prime suspect for the God of Time. Case closed. Or maybe not. In order for this theory to be really true, something else needs to also be true. The Animo God and Time God are intimately related, right? That means we need to have a connection we can draw between Venti and Paimon, one that exists outside the Traveler. One could say, well, they're both gods. But that doesn't provide any conclusive evidence, and as far as the game would like us to believe, the Archons have nothing to say about Paimon.
Who?
So, is there a connection? Something that ties the two together? Something that proves Venti specifically knows exactly who or what Paimon is? Yes, there is.
He needs some milk!
But it's not in the game. It's in the manga. This is where things get highly speculative on my part, so I ask you guys to expand your minds a bit. Buckle up, because we're going into interesting territory. Oh, and keep in mind that the manga is entirely canon, not some obscure material, so I'm not just pulling things out of my ass, okay?
No.
Cool, let's dive in. 1,000 years prior to present day, when the vile aristocrats ruled Mondstadt, Venti awakened from a long slumber and began to wander the streets of the city. He meets an apple seller, and after singing a song for some apples, I'm surprised he didn't look for alcohol, Venti asked what happened to the city of freedom. The streets are empty, the city is
Curses.
This is what the apple seller had to say. The city is in peace, just as the Lord and his magnates want it to be. Make no mistake, they will keep it that way. We are then shown the most mysterious panel in the entire manga. So easy to miss, especially if you don't have context. This. The apple seller's words make Venti think of 3 people. 3 silhouetted figures amidst a starry sky with musical notes bouncing in the background. I think this is undoubtedly a reference to the Seelie and, ultimately, Aria, Sonnet, and Canon. That being said, I don't think all 3 sisters are depicted here. Only one, and that person is on the far right with the crown. If we take the apple seller's words and compare them to Venti's thought, then I would say the one with the crown is the Lord, and the other 2 are the magnates. Doesn't the Lord here look really familiar? A lot like an adult Paimon? The hair, the crown, even the boots look similar in shape to Paimon's. They're even wearing a long scarf, a staple feature of the Seelie. And just look at the color of the silhouette. It's the same shades of blue and white that are used in Paimon's cape as well as in her eyes. And there's even a hint of rose gold. Sure, you could say that the crown is slightly different, it's much larger and seems to have a diamond in the center. But keep in mind, Paimon's crown has been represented in many different ways. The arrows in the middle of it have often been replaced with a diamond. It happens on the official Genshin logo. And keep in mind that Paimon is potentially a fragmented existence, so differences are to be expected, right? As for the other 2 characters here, they don't look like anyone we've seen in the game so far yet, but Like I said, I don't think they're the other two moon sisters. The one on the left looks fairly masculine to me, and the one in the center looks quite androgynous, so they could be either or. I think I can answer this mystery of who these two characters are. According to the Ars Goetia, which is a part of the Lesser Key of Solomon, if Paimon is summoned alone, you must make a sacrifice to summon LEBAL and ABALAM, two kings who serve under Paimon. Could these two magnates be Genshin's version of LEBAL and ABALAM? I know, I'm taking a lot of liberties here and making a lot of assumptions, and we'll need way more information before any solid theory could be made about this, but I think there's something here. I really think this is Paimon. And if it is, this shows us Venti knows exactly who she is, and that evokes a lot of questions regarding our already sus Windborn Bard, which is why part 2 in my Sun and Moon series will be devoted to questioning everything we know about our beloved Animo Archon. Well, that was the plan, but then I changed my mind. I have to talk about the other two sisters. There's just so much we gotta go through, guys. So my whole Venti video about who he really is going to have to wait a little bit longer. But until then, travelers, thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, and I'll be waiting for you in part 2. Let's board the silver skiff together.
Tevat's day and night both seem particularly short. The skies here are full of stars, but they aren't the same as the ones seen from my home.
The stars, the sky, it's all a gigantic hoax. A lie.
Sorry, I haven't a clue. I'm also unfamiliar with the god you describe.
No matter how weak the god, the power that flows forth when they are slain is beyond the strength of mortal coils to bear.
When the darkness seized the long night, did it envisage its end at the hands of a shooting star? Now that we have a better understanding, let's put some of the pieces together.